now. The polls have been set up to pop up automatically on your screen at the appropriate time. Please answer each poll as quickly as possible. There will be one response per device. If you're joining us as a group, you may want to sign in individually so that you will each have an opportunity to weigh in on our polls individually. Results will be posted immediately after everyone has answered. If you need to exit the webinar early, please click on Leave Meeting, found at the top of your screen. A friendly reminder that today's webinar is being recorded and may be shared at a later date. Thanks again for joining us today.
Excellent. Thank you, Celeste. Good afternoon. I'm Allison Purcell Pike. I'm your president. We are very excited to be able to be here today with all of you. We have a great afternoon ahead where you will be able to learn more about the advocacy that has been done on your behalf. We will hear from you, our members, with questions that were submitted with your registration, as well as questions and comments you have as we move through the afternoon. We have heard from our members over the years about wanting to have engagement opportunities between the annual conferences and AGM. We have heard you say coming to conference and AGM has barriers such as cost, distance, and timing in the year, with some of you out in the field seating, at dance competitions, or busy with other activities. The ASCA board has been looking at new and innovative ways for us to be able to engage with our members across the province, regardless of where you live. We want to hear your voice. We want to hear from all of you. Hosting this event today is one of the ways that we are being innovative in how we reach our members. This is the first time an event like this has been held. This opportunity today is one in which we can hear from you and use what we learned today to potentially shape and form future board-sponsored resolutions with any trends that we learn of. We are both excited and nervous for how today will go. Obviously, we've already had some challenges and we'll work through those. Although there may be some barriers to hosting the event today, such as how we are able to interact with you, please know that we will only grow from today's member engagement opportunity to make these bigger and better in the future. As a board, we have a strong desire to hear and understand our member voices. And some of the other ways we are doing so is with the School Council Engagement Task Force, which many of you are already members. It's an opportunity for us to hear from you throughout the year. As a school council, you choose one representative, you submit that name to our office, and in turn, we send you questions we are looking to hear your opinion on. There's typically 4 to 6 sets of questions we will send you throughout the year on current hot topics in education. Some of these include questions on choice in education, the current one is on vaping, or one last year was on seclusion rooms. We use that information to then go on to bring forward a board-sponsored resolution at the 2019 AGM, which was passed by you, our members. We were then able to use that policy statement on seclusion rooms when myself and other board members have been invited to speak about the parent voice on seclusion rooms. As well, when we have media requests and in recent meetings with the minister, I'm able to speak your voice on seclusion rooms. The board and staff have also been reaching out to school councils that haven't accessed ASCA in the past couple of years to encourage you to use your voice. There are many ways that we will continue to engage with you and to ensure we continue to be the voice of parents in education through school councils. So we're very excited to be here today with you, excited to engage and excited to hear what your voice is. I will now turn it over to Lisa Arland, who will do our territory acknowledgement. Lisa?
Thank you, Allison. As the ASCA board joins with you today, let us remember that we live, play, work, and worship on Treaty 6 territory, a traditional meeting grounds, gathering place, traveling route for the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, Dene, and Nakota Sioux. We acknowledge and give thanks to the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries. We pay respect to the elders past, present, and those emerging. May we live with respect on this land and in peace and friendship with its people. Hi, hi.
Thank you very much, Lisa. I'm now very pleased to be able to introduce to you our board. This is an amazing board. It's a board that has worked hard throughout this year. They give up weekends to be away from their family, to be here to to learn more about the parent voice in education, to explore ways that we can hear your voice and explore ways that we can share your voice with government, ministry, and Alberta Education and other partners. The board members have attended external opportunities to represent your voice throughout the province as well as here in Edmonton. They've reached out in their own communities as well as online to encourage engagement from parents across the province. So I'd like to start by introducing our Vice President, Brandy Rye. Brandy is from Edmonton and has been on the board. This is her 4th year on the board. And then I'll start on my right. I have Sarah Rawlingson. She is from Red Deer, and this is her 1st year on the board. So she is brand new and a little bit nervous. And then on my left, I have Lisa Arland. Lisa is from Grovedale, and she is entering her 3rd year on the board. Behind me, I have Jackie Surgener, and Jackie is from Sherwood Park and is entering her 4th year on the board. And then I have Rick Sekundiak. Rick is from Sexsmith and is entering his 3rd year on the board. And last but not least, I have Shelley Odeshaw, and Shelley is from Red Deer, and she is entering her 3rd year on the board. I would also like to take a moment to introduce Holly Tarasowicz. Holly's not able to be with us as she had cataract surgery just 2 days ago, but she is joining us online, and she lives down in Lethbridge and is entering her 4th year on the board. So this is your board of directors, and they are busy representing you across the province at many engagement opportunities. So I'd ask the board members to please exit the stage. Thank you. Now I'd like to turn it over to Sarah for a few housekeeping items.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedules and waiting while we sorted out our technical issues. We're so pleased you're here. My name is Sarah Rawlingson, and I'm a director with ASCA. Before I get into the housekeeping, I'd like to mention that we also have quite a few staff in the room who are helping us to be able to bring you this engagement opportunity, and who, for the first 10 minutes of this, worked tirelessly to make sure that we had some audio. In the emails that you received regarding this webinar, there was a link to your materials package, which contains your meeting schedule and information. Hopefully you've all been able to find it. If you cannot find it, please check the chat window or the slides, and the link will be posted shortly. Also, I'd like to go over a few basics within the Zoom program. On your screen, you should see 3 buttons labeled Q&A, raise hand, and chat. If you're unable to see this, try hovering your mouse over the edges of your screen, or tap if you're using a touchscreen device, and they should hopefully pop up. I want to clarify the Q&A and chat features. The chat will be used for technical issues and questions. We have directors watching the chat who can try to assist you if you have a question of that nature. The Q&A portion is for a question that you have not submitted to the board or the Minister of Education. Please feel free to submit your questions at any time during this session. These questions will be sorted by the staff and directors and will either be answered electronically or on air. Please note, only panelists and hosts are able to see the questions that have been asked. Once they are answered, everyone will be able to see both the question and the response. Also, if we are unable to answer your question today, please email the question to parents@albertaschoolcouncils.ca. We will then respond to you personally at a later date. Throughout this session, we'll be doing live polling questions to various topics. The questions and answers were given to you prior to this session in your materials package. There are no options to provide original responses or answers. So again, please email parents@albertaschoolcouncils.ca if you'd like to provide an answer to a polling question that's not available to you at this time. We would like to try a practice poll in just a moment so you're all able to see the format and that we can make sure that we have everything running smoothly beforehand. Tracy, could you make the poll live? It should have popped up on your screen. Please choose your answer and press submit at the bottom. I would give it about 30 seconds for answers to come in. I can see that quite a few of you have already found the poll. We'll give it just a few more seconds. There's about 20 of you who are still debating on your answers. Okay, we will now close the poll and release the results. The answer is that our 2020 conference and AGM is April 24th to 26th, and I hope you can all be there. I will now turn the time over to President Allison Purcell-Pike to do our educational scan and provide you with your advocacy and action update. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. When I became president over 3 years ago now, I wanted our board members to be up to date and current on what was happening in education. So I introduced doing an educational e-scan, a scan of our environment to learn and understand what is happening in education and what is on the provincial education landscape. I thought it would also be a great opportunity for me to do the same for you. There will be many more items covered throughout the afternoon, so I won't touch on every area in education, but I will hit on a couple of the top ones. The first one is on choice in education. We know that this government ran with a platform on choice in education. We didn't know what that meant or entailed, but we have been willing to listen, engage, and to learn more. This government had planned to table the Choice in Education Act earlier this fall, but realized they needed to hear more from Albertans. As a board, we decided to hear from you, our members, right at the start of the school year. And that was the first School Council Engagement Task Force question that we asked you. We, as a board, are reviewing the feedback we received and will continue to use that information in future meetings we have with Alberta Education. We have also met with the Minister and with Alberta Education to look at engaging our members and Albertans on choice in education. There is currently a provincial survey out that ends in early December. We strongly encourage you to complete this survey to ensure your voice is heard on choice in education. And we also encourage you to speak at your school council meetings and in your communities to have other parents do the same. This is an important survey, and your voice on choice in education is extremely important. I've been asked on many occasions what our parents think about choice and what our parents are saying about public education. Now is your time to speak up about these topics so I can represent your voice. We will also be representing your voice on choice in education at a meeting that we have with our executive as well as Alberta Education on December 2nd. Next on the e-scan is curriculum. The government has put a pause on curriculum and formed a curriculum review panel. We know that as parents, you had many opportunities to provide your feedback on the draft K-4 curriculum, with many of you participating in the 24 sessions ASCA hosted across the province together with Alberta Education to hear your voices back in 2018. As a board, we had great representation on working groups where together with teachers, we were able to advise on the draft curriculum over the past number of years. Parents have been anxious to get moving forward on the draft curriculum so that our children can be learning from a 21st century curriculum. And we did hear from you that the implementation of curriculum was going to be an important step that you didn't want rushed. You wanted to ensure that teachers had enough time to learn, practice, and test out the new curriculum so that they were confident in what they were going to be teaching our students. As well, you wanted to ensure that they had the resources they and our students needed for the new curriculum, and that the dollars didn't come out of the current education local budgets, but instead there was dedicated dollars for the teacher training as well as the resources that were needed for the new curriculum. Yesterday, we were able to represent your voice on curriculum as we met with the curriculum review panel and spoke about curriculum concerns. We spoke about the importance of learning about mental health and resiliency. We spoke about a curriculum that would be for all students and accessible to all. We spoke about the importance of parents continuing to have engagement opportunities on the curriculum, as well as on the ministerial order on student learning. We spoke about the importance of having teachers not only developing and advising on the curriculum, but also being on the review panel, which we know that no teachers are on. What we have learned is that there will be engagement opportunities in January and February for you to be able to provide feedback. Please watch our ASCA website for more information on what those engagement opportunities will look like. Now on to seclusion rooms. Over the past year, we have heard from many parents across the province. We heard so strongly that we did put forward a resolution at last year's AGM on seclusion rooms. We were able to participate on the advising of the standards on seclusion rooms. We were also able to speak about the lack of accountability in those standards and the encouragement to continue to develop the standards. They're telling me I need to slow down, so I will slow down. And the encouragement to continue to develop the standards to match what is important to parents. So we will continue to speak of what you were wanting around accountability. When I met with the minister on November 4th, I spoke about the continued concerns on seclusion rooms and their use. The minister assured me that if parents have current experiences with seclusion rooms that they are concerned about, to please contact her office so that they can be dealt with immediately. You also can email our office and have us assist you in that process. She emphasized that she as well sees the importance to the accountability of the use of seclusion, and she is committed to dealing with the issues that arise. We will continue to seek opportunities to make changes to the standards and to represent your voice. Now on to the ASCA Advocacy in Action update. The summer started with ASCA kicking off the ASCA Value Campaign, a focused effort to introduce the association to every MLA in the province, new or returning, and to encourage school councils to reach out to their own MLAs to start building a positive relationship. Over the summer, early fall, as recent as November 4th, ASCA executive and/or board members met with the Minister of Education on 4 occasions, met with 14 MLAs, including the Speaker of the House, MLA Cooper, and the Minister of Transportation, Rick McIver. In all cases, the information ASCA had to share regarding our advocacy policies and the importance of the voice of parents on school councils being heard and respected at local, division, and provincial levels was received with sincere appreciation and acknowledgement of the great value that parents, school councils, and ASCA bring to education in Alberta. If your school council has reached out to your MLA, we'd love to hear about it. Please send an email to our executive director or to me directly using president@albertaschoolcouncils.ca email address. Please let us know in what way you are beginning or maintaining a collaborative relationship with your MLA. Examples may be invitations to special events at your school, school council meetings, or other opportunities for them to get to know the work your school council does and get to know the parents of the students in your school. The relationships we have with MLAs is so important, and not only when we have issues, but also so they know and understand our school communities when they represent their constituents. You may have also noticed that ASCA has been featured in a few media articles in recent months. Journalists recognize that ASCA represents thousands of parents who represent and serve their school communities and have reached out to learn your perspectives on topics such as class size, curriculum, lead in school water, as well as school fees. In addition to building relationships with MLAs and having them get to know and appreciate how ASCA represents the parent voice, we've also been busy providing the perspectives supported by our advocacy statements, in person and through written submissions on the following Alberta education stakeholder committees, advisory groups, or directly to panels or ministry staff in charge of the work. It was on the Education Act, Regulations Review, Seclusion Rooms, Timeout and Physical Restraints, Choice in Education, Curriculum Advisory, Diploma Exams, and the Assurance and Funding Framework Review. We've also worked to strengthen relationships and find common perspectives with education partners, such as Alberta School Boards Association, College of Alberta School Superintendents, the Association of School Business Officials of Alberta, and the Alberta Teachers Association. In fact, on Monday and Tuesday, we are meeting with ASBA, CAS, and ASBOA executive teams to explore how our associations can work together even more effectively. And we're having dinner with the minister and all the partners, including the ATA. With the ATA so far this year, we have received great support for our continued funding, discussed class size and complexity, provided an article in their September issue of the Learning Team, and will be supporting and communicating information related to the province-wide Disconnection Day in February. Stay tuned for more information on that. In addition, we continue to work with our great organizations supporting education, such as SOGI 123, the Alberta Regional Professional Development Consortia, and all of their regional extensions. Everactive Schools, the Francophone Parents Association, the Public School Boards Association, the Catholic School Trustees Association, and many, many others. Your ASCA board is very focused on connecting with more of its member school councils in different ways this year. We will be reaching out in person using emails and phone calls to school council chairs, and we're very excited and pleased to host this live engagement opportunity this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. Now I'd like to move on to our first topic that we'd like to hear your thoughts on. The next topic is on diploma exam weighting, and I'd like to invite Rick and Jackie to join me. Excellent. Thank you. And now I'll turn it over to Director Rick Sekundiak.
Good afternoon. Just a little bit of background to start. As of September 1st, 2015, diploma exams are weighted at 30% of students' final mark. Before this, diploma exams made up 50% of students' final grade. The current 70-30 weighting puts more emphasis on coursework and school awarded marks. ASCA has had an advocacy policy in place in the past from 2010 to 2011 that supported the 70-30 weighting of diploma exams. This policy was removed in 2017 when the weighting of the diploma exams was changed to 70-30. In their election platform, the United Conservative Party had committed to returning to a 50-50 weighting of diploma exams. This position has been put on hold, potentially providing an opportunity for stakeholders' input. At this time, the Board of Directors is interested in finding out if our members of school councils have changed their minds on this subject. Please start the poll now.
So your ASCA board provides plenty of input on your behalf. And I believe, Allison, you had the opportunity yesterday to attend the diploma exam meeting.
I did, Jackie. I was able to attend the Diploma Exam Advisory Committee meeting yesterday, and I was able to have great conversation. There was approximately 40 representatives in the room. That included Alberta Ed representatives in each diploma exam area. We learned about the continued difficulties that students are having with terminology on the Math 30-1 diploma exam, as well that students are unfamiliar with directing words such as prove, verify, and solve. As well, there was discussion on the guide for students on diploma exams that can be found on the Alberta Education website. So if you have a student that's in high school, it'd be great for you to go on to the Alberta Ed website, take a look for that guide for students on diploma exams. It will help provide you with lots of information to help support your students in getting prepared for those diploma exams. I was able to also speak with a director with Alberta Education about things that we have heard from parents. Specifically, I spoke with the director about the accommodations that teachers are expected to afford our students in the classroom, but those same accommodations are often not afforded to our students on diploma exams. We've heard from our members that that's a big concern for them, both on assessment as well as on diploma exams. I had a lengthy discussion about the accommodations for consideration that would not change the integrity of the diploma exam, but would enable more students to be able to complete diploma exams and to be able to carry on completing their high school diploma. We also discussed the use of CDs and MP3 players when they were using when students were able to have audio access to diploma exams, and the challenges that are associated with this. We hear from so many parents and students the anxiety of trying to use the MP3s and the CDs, and that it just isn't working for them as students. I was assured that there are great changes that are coming to the audio access for students, for our students to be able to have in the near future. They will have great features that there will be in the new format. So they're looking to get rid of the CDs in the very near future, and they will continue with MP3 players for those students that do need them, but they will be introducing a new format so that students can be able to access audio in a very different way, where they'll be able to fast forward rewind, and be able to go to exactly the question that they needed to go to. I'm very pleased, certainly, to hear this. We also spoke about exceptions from diploma exams, and I was invited to have further discussions with the director to continue having the parent voice on assessment and diploma exams to be heard. So I will be certainly sharing the information that we learned today from this poll with the director, as well as continue to have the conversation about looking at the accommodations that are afforded to our students on diploma exams, but still maintaining the integrity. So thanks, Jackie, for that question.
Celeste, do we have any questions that have come in through the Q&A?
We have not had any general questions on this topic, but we did have one that wanted to know if President Purcell Pike would be able to post her opening comments on our website so that other school councils could share your comments. It would help them generate discussion.
Yes, I can certainly do that. I'll make sure that I check for spelling errors in that, but I will definitely make that available for school councils to be able to share. Thank you.
And Tracy, are we done? Do you want to close the poll? So the poll has now been closed and published, and we'll give you a moment or two to look through the results and see if that generates any other questions as well.
So it looks like from the polling results that it's a continuation. The majority is for a continuation of the 30% weighting for the diploma exams. So we will explore the rest of the results, and we will work together as a board to figure out the trends that we are seeing and what we'd like to do with that information, and potentially have a board-sponsored resolution come forward for the AGM in 2020.
Yes. As well, the resolution process we did some dramatic changes to it last year. And so any school council can, of course, put forth an advocacy resolution. The date for submission is January 15th. And we would encourage you amongst your school councils to put forward those advocacy resolutions. When they are passed, it gives us the ability to then advocate to our partners and to Alberta Education and the Minister of Education on your behalf.
And I can just add, Jackie, in the meeting that I had yesterday and was speaking to the director, I did have a discussion with him about the question in regards to the percentages that we were going to be asking parents. And he was quite confident to be able to share with me that he felt it was going to stay at the 30-70%. And the reason that we wanted to ensure that we did this polling was so that if there is future consideration for consultation and engagement, that we do have some numbers from our members so that we do have an understanding of where our members are at with the weighting of this. And it looks like we may have a question.
Yes, we actually do. We have two of them. The first one is there any evidence available that would suggest that teacher assessment is not consistent with departmental exam results?
And we don't have that information right now, but I can certainly look into that further, Celeste, and we will provide that back to our membership.
Wonderful.
Can you tell me what school council that came from? No? Okay.
There isn't one listed.
That's
I apologize.
Okay. Thank you.
The next question is, what is the driver behind the government wanting to change the weighting?
And that will actually be a great question that we can ask the minister this afternoon. She's going to be joining us at 3 o'clock. I do know that a question had been submitted forward to her in regards to the weighting of diploma exams. So I will definitely, when the minister is here joining us for the call, I will definitely be emphasizing that this question was asked at this time.
Several years ago, we had an advocacy resolution policy on the books around that 30% weighting. And when we changed our process last year and the membership agreed, after 10 years, our advocacy policies either need to be amended, rescinded, or reaffirmed. And this is to ensure that we remain current. We had advocacy policies on the books from the 1970s and 1980s, and we all know how fast everything changes in education. So we want to make sure that we are spending our time and energy on current issues and using current viewpoints and current research.
Excellent. Thank you, Jackie. Are we good on this question? Excellent. Nothing further, Celeste? Okay, so I will ask Rick to leave the stage, and I will ask, as well as Jackie is actually going to leave, and I will ask Shelley and Brandy to join me up here. Excellent. Shelley, I'd like to turn it over to you if you can introduce the next topic.
Okay, so the next topic is education funding, which can be somewhat confusing. The current model for public, separate, and charter schools begin with the base instruction rate or a per student allocation. The funding framework takes rural, urban, or metro into consideration, and this funding may be utilized as the school board sees fit. Some funding targets specific items like transportation. Some funding targets specific items like transportation and maintenance. Sometimes provincial education budgets will include funds to support particular areas of focus, such as English language learners or Indigenous learning. Target funding also applies to capital funding for the building of schools and playgrounds. And we have some questions we'd like you to answer. If you could please start the poll now.
Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you. And so I'm going to read a policy statement from one of our partners. And so in relation to funding, the Alberta Teachers Association says, in general, ATA policies related to funding of education speak to the need for sufficient, equitable, and sustainable funding and account for inflation, necessary improvements, and numbers and complexity of students, and that voucher systems in any form should not be used to fund public education. There is also a need for collaborative decision-making and reporting at local, division, and provincial levels. So Allison, what are we hearing from parents across the province?
So what I'm currently hearing from parents across the province, we've had a number of parents send in to us the statements that they're getting from their school boards in regards to what's happening for budget in their school division. They're receiving notices, whether it's in an email, whether it's on, what is it called in Edmonton? On School Zone, they're receiving publications, and those are being shared with us so that we can better be able to respond. And what we're hearing is that they're concerned with the cuts that they're hearing about. They're concerned about class size and complexity. When we're hearing about 300 teachers being let go in Calgary, what change is that going to make for their students? What is that going to look like? The class sizes, we already heard in September in Calgary, there was some very large class sizes of 45 students where they were out in large congregations having those classes, and how are they able to get the learning that they need? And now if we're losing 300 teachers in Calgary, what will that look like for our students? And parents are definitely concerned. We're hearing from Rocky View School Division, parents are talking about the transportation fees that are going to begin being charged to them throughout the school year. That's definitely concerning to parents about the increase. But what we're also hearing is that there are some school divisions where parents aren't being engaged or aren't hearing anything, or that the school board isn't making any changes until next year. They're looking at staying status quo, and they are looking at just going forward and going into September, and that they will look at what changes are going to happen in September. And what we're hearing from parents about that is that they would actually rather know now what they can expect to see. Is there going to be larger increases come to them? Is there an opportunity for them as parents to engage, to have those conversations, for parents to be able to advocate now when this is the time that they want to have those conversations? So it really is looking at what parents are hearing across the province from their school divisions. And I would definitely encourage school councils that when they are receiving that information, whether it's at their school council meeting or whether it is through email or through School Zone, to definitely forward that. As I said earlier, my email address is president@albertaschoolcouncils.ca. So please forward those to us. We are then going to be taking those, and we will be responding on social media with connecting them to any policy statements that we have, that we're able to reply in regards to our member statements.
Thank you for your comments. So, Allison, from your perspective, how do you feel that school councils, because school councils across our province, they may look very different in their school community, but we all have commonalities in terms of our legislative roles and generally the way that we support our school communities. And so part of our legislative role is to consult with our admin around budgets and school fees. And so what time of year usually would these conversations be happening? And right now, when should school councils be putting these items on their agenda, and who should they be communicating within their districts?
Well, and Brandy, that's a great question. I'm hearing from some school councils that are actually looking at their divisions are looking at having town halls just on budget. So the divisions are looking to share with all their parent community what's happening, and they're looking to do that in a public way. So it's a great time for school councils to be asking their administrators. And what I did at my school specifically is I asked, our school council meeting is a week away. So I engaged with the vice principal at my son's school and asked the questions that I would like to hear answered at next week's school council meeting. So I asked so that they could be able to prepare and be able to share with parents at our school council meeting next week. So it's a great opportunity at your school council to ask those questions. If you can provide that ahead of time to your principals, that's great. But if not, that's fine as well. You can bring those questions up. School councils are the place to have those discussions and to be asking for more information from your school boards, and invite your school trustees to come to those meetings as well. Your school trustees want to hear what your concerns are as parents, and they want to be engaged with you. Okay, I'm being asked if we can please give a couple of minutes of quiet so that you can respond to the polling questions. So we will wait for a couple of minutes. Thank you for letting us know that you needed that break to be able to answer the questions. We do have a question that came in regards to us being able to share information about budget and what to ask administrators. Can you share that question with us, Celeste?
Absolutely. It was a great question. Is it possible to share some of the recommendations made as far as questions for school councils to ask with regards to budget matters?
So we will certainly do up a document that we can share with you, and it would be a document that you'll be able to ask your administrator specific questions related to budget, and it's questions that are going to be general provincially. So if you want to make them more specific locally, certainly change that, and we will make sure that this is done and posted onto our website. Thank you for that great question. Did you have another one, Celeste?
I do. I have a couple that have come in. Are there any plans to advocate for assistance to address the increasing insurance costs for schools across the province?
And we have definitely heard about the concern with the increase, the massive increase to insurance. And we have been working together with our partners to look at what the options are, as well as we spoke to the Minister of Education, and she spoke about she is addressing it as well. Where the concern is for parents is in regards to what will that impact be on parents. So we are definitely working together with our partners, working together with the Minister of Education, looking at what input we can have into that, definitely with the concern that it is such a high increase, and where will that trickle down to? Will it be in the classroom? Will it be in fees? Will it be in cuts? Where will it be? So it's definitely a concern to us, and we're working together with our partners. Celeste, did you have another question?
I just had someone comment in the chat room. They said it was a great question, but can that document be available by Monday evening?
I would ask that that school council parent to send me an email on president@albertaschoolcouncils.ca, and I will send them a couple of responses for them to use on Monday evening. And then we will post later for everybody to have access. Thanks, Celeste. Is there any more? We're good?
And so, Allison, I was thinking about how you had spoke about how parents are concerned because these budget cuts and the lack of funding in their local district, they are rightly concerned that this is going to get offloaded onto them in a multitude of ways, either in school fees or in ways or in their fundraising society needs to fundraise more to fill those gaps. So, you know, if you're a parent on a school council and your school council's had these discussions and then you've really collaborated with your local trustees and you've had these great conversations and they're clearly doing the best they can with what they have, what are some next steps that school council members can take in order to raise their concerns maybe to a higher level?
Excellent. Thanks for that question, Brandy. I know that school councils are engaging in those conversations, and we've heard that they want to know what questions to ask. What we could also do is provide them with some questions for their MLAs, because it's really important. We engage our trustees at our school council meetings. Be sure to invite your trustees to those school council meetings when you're having those discussions on the budget, but also make sure that you're engaging with your MLAs. You can go out individually or as school councils to meet with your MLAs. Your MLAs are representing you as constituents in the House, and they are able to advocate on your behalf for what your concerns are. It is really important to be doing that, reaching out, and that's why it's so important to build those relationships with MLAs and to be inviting them to your school council events. Sorry about the echo there. Okay. So that would be my greatest advice, Brandy, is that they look at connecting with their MLAs and definitely be including their trustees in those engagements. I think Shelley has some questions.
Okay, so Shelley, do you have some questions that you can share?
I do have one question that came in earlier. Any recommendations on how councils can engage parents on education funding?
I apologize. I was checking with staff about a timing issue. And so can you please repeat the question? Thank you.
The question is, any recommendations on how councils can engage parents on education funding?
Oh, yeah, that's a wonderful question. So, school council chairs can, of course, put that on their agenda, collaborate with your principal so that your principal is aware of when you're going to have this discussion, and they can bring that information with them for that meeting that night. So put it on your agenda, make sure that you give it enough time that you have the ability to have an in-depth conversation, but that it's not so long that it becomes overwhelming and a daunting part of your agenda that night. You can also put it in your newsletter. Hey, are you aware of the budgets that are the budget cuts? Sorry, not the budget cuts, the budget that came out. Are you aware of how this is impacting our district? Put the questions out there because parents want to have opportunities to have those discussions. And so as a school council chair, you have the unique and wonderful responsibility of being a liaison between your school administrators and your parents. And it's really a great opportunity for you to take that lead and initiate those conversations in the parking lot, at pickup, at welcome back barbecues, if you're past that point, at parent-teacher interviews. So this is, I really see the budget as an opportunity for us to look at what we're doing well in our school communities and how we can do even better for our students. So I don't think that we need to shy away from having these discussions at school council meetings. I don't think that we need to worry. I think we need to be reaching out with a helping hand to our administrators and to our trustees and all of our education partners. And I feel like this is an opportunity that we are in a unique position as school council chairs, because I'm one myself, to really help our school community through this time.
Shelley, you have another question that had come in with registration?
I do. The question came from Black Gold School Division. How will you help school councils advocate for the proper funding of public education?
Was that a question that just came now, or was that a previous one? That is awesome. So I really liked that question, and so I had some notes on that. You want to take it, then I'll bounce off. Go.
So one way that we had addressed earlier was in regards to hearing from our school council parents in what ways that they're being told of what budget changes there are. And what we've decided as a board is that we will take those and we will match them up with any advocacy policy statements that we have, and we will be looking to social media to address those in regards to what we're seeing for school fee increases, what we're seeing for cuts at schools, and linking those to our policy statements and posting those on social media. So it's one great way that we're doing that. We as well are, advocating with Alberta Education, with the Minister of Education. I meet with her on a regular basis, as well as working together with our partners. And on Monday and Tuesday, when we meet with the partners, we will definitely be having many discussions about budget and the impact. And we will be bringing up the Ask a Voice at that time and be speaking for parents. Did you have anything to add, Brandy?
I think that you covered it all, actually. Very well done.
Thanks, Brandy. Shelley, I see Celeste has another question.
I do. I have a couple that have come in. The first one just came in. How can we help out our teachers and staff with the extra stresses from the new budget?
So parent involvement and engagement at schools not only supports student success, but also supports the well-being and health of our teachers, which is a crucial thing that we as parents need to recognize and be thankful that we have the opportunity to do. And so your school council can be, working with your administrator and your teachers to say, do you need us to do potluck food during parent-teacher interviews? Like what are ways that we can really reach out and help you? And they don't have to be conventional ways. We're not saying that you need to be personally buying things in the classroom to alleviate teachers taking money from themselves to put things in the classroom. But what we're saying is you have those conversations and you say, do you need an extra set of hands this week? How is that working out for you? Can I help with this? Can I volunteer for that? Parents are vital volunteers in a school. And so now is the time to see what your school community needs and how you can help in ways that are not necessarily writing a check or going out and fundraising for your school. And having that relationship, so when teachers and admin feel valued and respected and supported, especially when they're overwhelmed and they're having a hard time, your whole school community health rises, and so does your student success. So it's just those little things that parents can do through school council and through individual parents going and volunteering that I have found really lift the morale of teachers and make them feel supported and valued.
Excellent. Thanks, Brandy. And I'll just add, those that came to our conference last year would have had the privilege to hear Dr. Jody Carrington speak. And Jody speaks quite often in regards to how we need to support our school staff. And it is about that connection. It is about working together with our teachers in ways that will support them. Sometimes it's just the easiest things that we need to do. It's a simple thank you card. It's a simple saying thank you. It's bringing in a plate of cookies, right? So it's what ways can we support our teachers? They are going through quite a bit. They have a lot of stress on them that they're faced, and with cuts that are coming, they're not sure what's happening. They also are concerned with class size and complexity, what's going to be happening in their classrooms, and really looking to Dr. Jody Carrington and what ways can we support. The teachers they have our students for more time in a school day than we have our students. And it is really important that we are supporting our staff to be able to take care of our babies, as Jody would say. So we really need to look to the messaging that we received from Jody and look at how we can be translating that for our teachers and our staff that do have our children all day. So it is definitely an important question, and it's important that we work together to support our teachers and our staff. Did you have some more questions, Celeste? Okay, and I believe Shelley has another question.
And the last question that I have regarding funding that came in before, what can school councils do to encourage parents to reverse or oppose cuts to education? What can school councils do to encourage parents to reverse or oppose cuts to education?
I think that Allison, you addressed that in some of your previous comments. Can you just summarize that for us again quickly, please?
Yep. So I think that it's really important that we're hearing from parents, that parents are working together with their school councils, with their administration. They're working together with their trustees. Again, I would emphasize that you go out and meet with your MLAs if this is of concern to you. You're advocating. You can certainly repost and retweet anything that we post in regards to the budget and the impact that that's having in your school communities. So really looking at ways that you can advocate for what's important to you and your students, and let us know what concerns you have, and that's by sending those messages into us about what they're seeing as the reductions in their schools and what changes are going to happen and what school fees they're going to see increased.
Thank you for that comment. And so, Tracy, is the poll complete? Yes. So can we publish those results, please? Thank you. Just going to sit quietly for a moment so that you have the ability to look over them without us interrupting your focus.
Excellent. So we've been able to take a look at some of the polls. I see that 40% of the school divisions that are represented here today have shared with their school councils what the impact of the budget will be. So that's great to hear that that engagement is there. I do see quite a number with not yet, that they haven't received that feedback from their school boards. So it is important, as we shared earlier, about how to engage with your principals, how to engage with your trustees to ask for that information. And we are hearing again, as I said at the beginning, in regards to parents want to know now. They don't want to wait until next September to find out what the impacts might be. And hearing now will provide you with the opportunity to be advocating now while the rest of the province is advocating as well. Brandy, did you see some other highlights there?
Yes, so 63% of those polled said that as a result of the budget, that their school council expects to see larger class sizes. And so we know as parents that larger class sizes, and if you factor in class complexity and learning needs, that will be a real challenge for our students and for our teachers. So 63% of us are recognizing that we're going to have larger class sizes now.
And I know that that's definitely a huge concern to parents. And we have that as a member statement, that they want to ensure that class size and complexity is something that we're advocating for. So we will definitely be looking at that. I also noticed that 70% are looking at fewer supports and resources for students requiring additional assistance. And another, with that school zone, what was shared with us was in regards to that Edmonton Public is looking at the assessments. And one discussion that we've had as a board this morning was in regards to what that impact is. So even though your child individually may not be impacted by not having an assessment, it actually impacts the entire classroom when children aren't being assessed. It impacts the teacher and how the teacher is being able to interact with the students in the classroom, and impacts the entire class. Did you want to add anything, Brandy?
Assessed and supported.
And supported,
and
yeah.
so that goes to fewer supports and resources. So it's not just that these students in some districts do not now have the funding for assessment, but school council members are aware that those students are also not going to have access to support and resources. And so again, that impacts the entire class's health and wellness, not just those individual students who are struggling and have not been assessed and supported.
Yeah. And I'm seeing also on here that 63% are being told that there'll be an increase in school fees. And that's definitely a concern when we're hearing from Albertans that are still out of work, that still aren't having the funds that they need to be able to provide for their kids every day. And now with potentially seeing that increase in school fees is definitely a huge concern that we know parents have. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else you want?
Celeste has a question.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Brandy. Our school has a lower enrollment rate this school year, affecting our per student funding with larger class sizes at other schools in our city. Why are students not bused to lower enrollment schools to lower class sizes?
And that is a great question that I hope that you are asking at your school council meeting. And we can certainly be advocating for that as well provincially. For what we hear from our members in that regard. But you do need to make sure that you are addressing that at your school council meeting. Be sure that you are inviting your trustee to that meeting. And then you also have the opportunity, a number of school boards across the province, they have open forum time at their district board meetings. So take the opportunity, if this is a concern to you, take this opportunity to take it to your board of trustees and make a presentation to the trustees and let them know that it's a concern and you want to see something different. And then we will follow up provincially for what we can do on this topic as well. Thanks for that question. Do we know what school division school that was? Okay. Do you have any other questions, Celeste? Shelley, do you have any other questions for us? Okay.
Okay, so in closing comments, looking at the poll, there is increased workload / stress for teachers and staff. Again, that's at 66% of those polled. And so I know that we've already spoken about the impact on teachers. I think it's very important that we recognize the stress that parents are going to be under right now. And so school councils can be an excellent place for parents who are stressed out and need a place to talk about their situation. Remember that at school council, we talk about concepts, not specific people. So we wouldn't talk about, our individual students or our teachers, but we can talk about generally the way that the school fees are impacting our personal lives and our budgets at home, and the way that increased school fees reduce our children's access to extracurricular activities. So school council can be a place where you go and you talk about the things that are impacting your family because of the education budget. And I feel like that is something that parents need to have. They need to have a safe space and an outlet to go and communicate with other parents and their admin about how this is affecting them, because parents need to be taking care of themselves as well, because they're taking care of teachers and they're taking care of students and they're trying to balance their own home budgets. So that's just my closing comments on budget today.
Excellent. Are we done with budget? Because I just wanted to add that it's great that I'm hearing, I have some messages coming into me, and I know that a number of parents from across the province are actually at watch parties today. And it's great to hear that you guys are at watch parties and you're together. I do know that Fort McMurray Public did have a gathering for parents to be able to join there, as well as school in St. Albert Catholic. They had some parents gathering at a parent's house. And I know MLA Sarah Hoffman also has gathered some parents. So please, if you do have those gatherings, that's great that you've gathered together. It provides that networking opportunity. Send us in a picture. We'll make sure that we share that as much as we can. So it's great to have that. And I see Celeste has another question on this same topic.
I do.
Excellent.
Does the ASCA board have any thoughts on advocacy around funding rates for urban versus rural divisions? Our division was funded at the urban rate, even though we have a significant rural student population.
So the board has worked together. We've worked with our partners. We've heard from our partners of what they are looking for in regards to funding and funding formulas. And the reason that we had this question on here was we really wanted to be able to hear what our members had to say, and so that we can take a look at these results. So we will take a look at the results that you've provided us here today, and we will look at the difference between the urban and the rural, as well as that impact when it's based on the size. And sometimes that size isn't really reflective of what rural and urban is for our schools. So we will take a look at the results that we have, and as a board, we will make some decisions about our next steps on that, and we will continue to work together with our partners. We also have been working together with Alberta Education on funding formula, and we will continue to have those conversations and advocate for parents, and we will use these results moving forward and look at what resolutions we potentially want to bring forward to our members. So thank you very much. Is there any other questions, or we are good? Okay, so
thank you so much, Allison and Shelley. I will now invite Lisa and Jackie up with us because we're going to discuss youth vaping.
Thank you, Brandy. Vaping is not harmless, yet 23% of Canadian teens from grades 7 to 12 have tried it. School divisions across the province are dealing daily with students vaping in and around their schools. A lack of information around the dangers of vaping and the ease with which students can access these products contribute to this issue. Current legislation in Alberta does not address vaping. In part, to address the recent increase in vaping, smoking, and tobacco use among the youth, the Government of Alberta is conducting a review of the Tobacco and Smoking Reduction Act. The ASCA Board of Directors is seeking member school council input on this topic as it relates to students and local school communities. Please start the poll now.
So if it's okay with everyone, we will give you approximately 2 minutes to finish this poll, and we will be quiet. So thank you for taking the time to complete that poll. So we currently, as an association, do not have a policy around vaping, which is one of the reasons why we're engaging you today, is to bring awareness to this topic and see if it's an interest of you to create a resolution for upcoming AGM and conference. However, one of our education partners does have a policy. And so the ATA vaping policy states, the ATA believes that the government of Alberta should amend the Tobacco and Smoking Reduction Act to regulate vaping products in the same way as the Act regulates tobacco products. And so, Lisa, what are the current tobacco regulations and what do they say?
Thank you, Brandy. Current tobacco and smoking reduction rules place restrictions on advertising, packaging, and tobacco products. Tobacco products cannot be flavored and cannot be sold to individuals under the age of 18. However, individuals under the age of 18 working in a retail environment can sell tobacco products. Legislation establishes penalties for not complying with these requirements. For example, someone selling tobacco products to a minor or following the advertising restrictions could face a fine up to $10,000 for a first offense and up to $100,000 on subsequent violations. Minors may also face penalties of up to $100 for any possession of tobacco products.
So as Brandy mentioned, the Alberta School Councils Association has no policies on vaping. We have heard from our members loud and clear through school council tables and discussion that vaping is a huge concern amongst parents and for our children. I was able to attend a stakeholder engagement session that included the people and representatives from the College of Alberta School Superintendents, the Alberta Health Services, the Edmonton City Police, Sherwood Park Primary Care Network, the Action on Smoking and Health, the Canadian Cancer Society. There were doctors there, people from the University of Alberta, and I was able to attend on behalf of Alberta School Councils Association. And I think the one thing that hit me really hard is that they have seen an increase in youth smoking for the first time in decades. And they believe that it is firmly related to the increased use of vaping. So it normalizes the tobacco, normalizes smoking. So that is, of course, a huge concern because we spent decades working on getting kids not to smoke, and they're now starting to see an increase. The government is committed to a review of the Tobacco and Smoking Reduction Act. And as a result, there is an online survey that's open till November 29th. There's a ton of really good information. And so even if you don't know a lot about smoking and vaping, it's full of wonderful information that walks you through the survey. So I highly encourage everybody to go and do that. You can access that through the Government of Alberta website. And there's also been a lot of push out through our social media, through Alberta School Councils Association social media. So you can go back and check our tweets and our Facebook page and find the link there as well. There will be, as part of this process, there will be stakeholder engagement sessions. And so after I went to the one in Edmonton, and Alberta, Allison sits on part of the Comprehensive School Health Committee, South Zone. They are working on vaping as well and what they can do to get parent engagement on vaping. One of the commitments that came out of the stakeholder session that I attended was that we brought it back to the board, and the board decided it was a big enough issue that we would, first of all, put our next school council engagement task force question out on vaping. So that is currently out until the beginning of December. And as well, the ASCA board committed to sending representatives to, I believe there will be 6 stakeholder engagement sessions around the province, and we will send one to everyone that we can, and I believe we have 5 out of those 6 covered. So we are absolutely looking at hearing the parent voice and using that. We're hoping that we can get a clear idea through the School Council Engagement Task Force and through the polling questions today that we will be able to bring forth an advocacy resolution to the annual general meeting in April that we can put on the books that we can advocate for. So it was interesting, some of the statistics that I just wanted to share with you, that Alberta is the last province to have explicit vaping legislation. We currently have none. Saskatchewan was sort of the last province other than Alberta, and they recently introduced vaping legislation that they have seen an increase in teen vaping from 8% to 22% from 2014-15 to 2016 and 17. So it is a dramatic increase amongst students in grades 10 to 12. And what they're seeing is that that is now being mirrored in our junior high age students as well. Research indicates that vaping can model and normalize smoking behavior amongst youth, and it indicates that youth who use vaping products with nicotine will become addicted and are at increased risk of becoming smokers. So as was mentioned earlier, our tobacco laws currently allow children under the age of 18 to sell smoking and tobacco and vaping products, and there is no provincial licensing, nor is there training requirements for any retailer who sells tobacco or vaping. As part of the stakeholder session, we were able to find some common ground in terms of advocacy. So what we decided we would push for is to align the regulation of tobacco and vaping products. So the rules for tobacco would also become the rules for vaping, and that they would look at also aligning some of those with cannabis and alcohol in terms of there is no license to sell tobacco and vaping products where there is to sell alcohol and cannabis. And so looking at aligning some of those and tightening up some of those rules. That we would look at displays. When you walk into any convenience store, tobacco has to be hidden, but vaping does not. And that as a result of a very robust discussion, that we would advocate, the stakeholder group would advocate for a ban on flavored vaping products. They achieved this several years ago with the tobacco. Nobody thought that it would, what they told us is nobody thought it could be done, and it was. So while it is a big uphill battle, it can be done.
So Jackie, so it's lovely to hear that there are districts that are addressing this, and they're engaging their school councils around that. So what are some tips for some school council members? Because you don't have to be a school council member at a high school. You can still be in early years, and this could be an agenda item. And so what would be some tips for some school council members to put this on their agenda? And then we will go to Celeste for a question after you answer that.
I think an excellent start is to discuss the School Council Engagement Task Force question. It's a great lead-in into to a discussion. We had it at one of the school councils that I sit on, and it led into a really great discussion around what's the school doing to in terms of consequences for vaping. It led into a discussion around, is that the same at all the high schools in the division? Is that decided on a school-by-school basis? What input do parents have on that policy? So those are always really great ways to start, as well as what kind of education are we doing, and what kind of discussion are we having with students around vaping and the potential consequences for vaping. I think they're just starting to see some of the longer term consequences. You've seen, I think in the States, there's been a ton of stories around students and teenagers who have been hospitalized and they believe it is a consequence of vaping.
Thank you, Jackie. Celeste, are you ready with a question? Thank you.
I have one here for you, Brandy. Are elementary schools going to be included in any policies developed dealing with vaping? We're finding being next to a middle school, our younger students are being exposed and seeing the older children vaping.
Okay, that's a great point. So our suggestion is for school council members to be having that discussion at their table with their admins, their principals, and then the next step would be to be having those discussions with your trustees to inform policy. So when that policy is created, it will not just be relevant to a certain age students. It would be policy that would affect the entire school district. And so I can understand concerns about how younger children are impacted by the vaping, even if they're not directly using it, which is why it's so important to have policy in place that admin and school districts can enforce around vaping.
I think it's also a really great opportunity at the elementary school council table to have discussions with the admin and with parents there and say, what do we want to do to help our students recognize that this isn't a healthy choice? And so there's lots of education that could happen. There may be, just like they do with, they have the DARE program. I think we need to start looking at how can we target smoking and vaping as an issue that we need to address at a school level too, in terms of education and empowering parents to have those discussions, whether that's questions, whether that's knowledge. A lot of the parents I talk to just say, I didn't know anything about it. And
Yes, because it's not something that some of our generations are even exposed to, and I personally was not informed enough about this to realize that there was an increase in children smoking who had initially started using vaping. Like, I had no idea what I didn't know until Jackie informed me what I didn't know. And so I really appreciate the conversations that I've been able to have with other parents and realize that there is a risk to our children here that we were unaware of. And so, Celeste, you had another question?
I do, and it ties right in with what you're talking about. Our policy is going to include all vaping on school property, not just students. So staff, teachers, parents.
So that is an excellent question. And so when districts make policy, they engage with their stakeholders. And so that would be something that, as a stakeholder, school council members should advocate to their trustees and their school board to include that in their policy so that it's captured that it's vaping, not just student vaping.
And I think we go back to empowering parents and providing those resources. I remember one principal talking about the vaping and it being as small as a USB, and you may not even know. And so I think making sure that parents really know and that you're having that discussion around your school council table about what does a vape look like? Is it this big thing? And what are the flavors? So there are all sorts of flavors. It's bubblegum and papaya, and they think that it's harmless.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think ensuring that everybody knows it wasn't something that we grew up living. It wasn't something we grew up being taught to not to do. It wasn't like drugs. It wasn't like smoking. It wasn't like alcohol. This didn't exist. And so just like we are navigating internet safety and we are learning on the go, we are learning about the apps that we need to be checking. Vaping is like that as well.
I agree. Celeste, do you have any more questions? No, thank you. Okay, so Tracy, is the poll ready? Thank you. Can you publish those results? And again, we will give you approximately a minute to review those. Thank you.
So there's some interesting things going on with our polling around the math. So we have some 105 and 110%. So I think that tells us that there is a pretty strong support for some of this, even if the math doesn't quite work out. We'll look into that a little bit more. But around, does your school council support stricter provincial rules and regulations about vaping was quite strong. And the other one that I was really happy to see was that around the survey is that many of you, it looks like 2/3 of you, the participants, have participated in that survey. There is still time. So I would highly encourage you to do that if you haven't. If you have thoughts, then feel free to email us at parents@albertaschoolcouncils.ca so that we can really use this to put forth an advocacy resolution in the spring, because I can really see that happening.
Thank you so much, Jackie and Lisa, for taking the time to give us more information about this. And so I will now ask Allison to join us again. And so at this time, we will be answering questions from registrants, either questions that they sent in before this, or those that have popped up in the chat window that have been given to us. So let us get started. Sure. Yeah, I'm ready.
Excellent. You ready, Brandy?
I was born ready.
Oh, excellent. Good. Good to hear. So the first question that we have is, what is the best way school councils can have a positive influence on their school?
Okay, so and I tried to briefly hit on that, or not so briefly hit on that earlier, but it really is about relationship building. And so school councils can help in the formation of a sense of community in their school. And because parents are partners in education. And so when they are empowered and they know their role and they know that they are an important part of that community, parents tend to step up and they tend to actively engage in that school community. So engaged, empowered, and involved parents, they are what help create a vibrant school community. And so this can look like, clear and consistent communications from the school councils out to the parents. This can look like intentional relationship building with your admins and your teachers. This can look like having like the tables at the Welcome Back barbecues and the parent-teacher conferences. Because when parents recognize that they have a voice within your school because they see their school council there, then they know that they're an important part of that education system in their local school community. And so it again goes back to school councils are important, and because they're important, they are needed in order to form a connected relationship in that school between students, parents, teachers, admin, and additional staff. And so if you need assistance in terms of ways to create agendas or take minutes or additional resources, we have a school council resource guide available on our website, and embedded within that document there are templates that school councils can use. And of course we also have an amazing office with staff that offer workshops that can help empower your school council so that you can make your school council the place that your school community needs it to be.
Excellent.
Yep.
Thanks, Brandy.
Yes. And so, so I'm going to ask you, and then we had additional ones. So do you want me to stay on this and then move to this? Okay, perfect. Okay. So Allison, how will you, and by you I mean us, how will you work to keep our trustee boards a working, integral part of our education system, and will you advocate for parental choice? And this question comes from Prairie Rose School Division Foremost.
Excellent. Thanks for that question, Foremost School Council. So ASCA strongly believes in supporting locally elected school boards, so much so that we have a policy. We work together over the last few years to find out from our members what their views are on working together with locally elected school trustees. And then last year we put forward the resolution, and it was passed, that we support, as parents across the province, we support locally elected school boards, and we support that local autonomy and that local voice. So we definitely support them. We want to encourage you to work together with trustees, invite them to school council meetings, meet with your trustees. Provincially, we're encouraging trustees to work together with their school councils. We're talking with trustees about how they can support their school councils. One way that I'm hearing many trustees talking about is with our resolution process. A number of the resolutions that often come up, sometimes the school council members don't know what some of those things are, what they're about. So some of the trustees are working together with school councils to allow them the opportunity to ask questions and get the answers from the trustees who know lots of the answers to what's happening with the resolutions that are coming forward. As well, school boards can look to work to the work that ASCA is doing in regards to parent engagement, and use the information that we gather through such events as this here today, as well as our engagement with School Council Engagement Task Force results, and use that information to support the work that they do in their communities as trustees. So really looking at how we can work together, how we can partner. It is very, very important that we work together with our locally elected officials. And now in regards to the parent choice, we will be reviewing the information that we received from our school council engagement task force question that we asked at the beginning of the school year. We will look as well to the Alberta Education Survey on Choice in Education. And we again encourage you to make sure that you take the time to go answer that survey with Alberta Education on Choice in Education, and encourage other parents in your community to complete that as well. And we ask our members to consider putting in a resolution focusing on what is important to them on parent choice in education. Our resolution process is now open, and the deadline for resolutions is January 15th. If it is important to you as a school council, consider putting in a resolution on parent choice in education. Put in a resolution of what is important to you so that our membership can vote on that at our next AGM. As well, we will as a board be looking at the results of both the Alberta Education Survey as well as our results from our School Council Engagement Task Force.
Thank you, Allison. And so Celeste, you had a question?
I had two great questions just come in. How can we set up meetings and workshops with other school councils in our area to share ideas and support each other?
That is a fabulous question.
That is, and actually, it actually really ties back into the question that we just had in regards to trustees. And really, if we work together with trustees want to hear from parents. They want to have opportunities to gather. And in a number of school divisions, there are opportunities such as a district school council or a council of school council chairs. And there's other opportunities such as that. So work together closely with your administrators as well as your school board trustees to see how those opportunities can exist. And I know that in some rural communities it's a little bit more difficult, but there are opportunities such as this with Zoom. We meet monthly with our board and you access Zoom and have had quite productive meetings, and that's some ways that you can engage with other parents across your division on a regular basis. And we do encourage that it is on a regular basis and not just 2 to 3 times a year, but really look at engaging on a monthly or bi-monthly basis with other school councils so that you can work together. And then one thing that we're seeing with ASCA with our workshops is that a number of school councils, when they request a workshop from ASCA, is they're getting together with other school councils. So that's a great opportunity for you to get together and network when you have ASCA come out to do a workshop. Down in my school division, a couple of years ago, we looked at bylaws and operating procedures, and a number of our school councils needed to update those. So we offered a joint session with all of the school councils in our community, and it was a great opportunity to work together with other school councils, talk about what's in their bylaws and their operating procedures, and really network on other topics as well. So there are lots of great opportunities to do that, and we continue to support school councils and boards that are doing that in ways that we can. And we've also had discussion, and we have division, one of our awards. This last year, we looked at how we can recognize divisions that are doing that work and bringing school councils together. So we as a board definitely support that work where we have school councils coming together and networking. Brenda, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I had a comment. So I think the first part of the question was about getting school councils together with an ASCA workshop. And so I've personally done that in my area, and I suggest that you don't have to just be at the start of the year, but at the start of your year, the purpose of a school council. So a lot of times we have a lot of turnover on school councils. And so having the purpose of a school council for all of your newbies that come on, and inviting, your local schools to join together. So maybe your elementary and the middle years and your high school, or maybe all of your elementaries, make contact. You can call their office and ask them to send a message along to their chair. And so when you get together and you experience these workshops together, the amount of learning is exponentially increased, and the fun is there to be had, let me tell you. So yeah, so that's a great opportunity. Again, as Allison said, for networking and learning. And then there is another wonderful workshop that we offer. It's not about the meeting. And so there are some high schools in my area that are looking at booking that later in the year, and multiple high schools attending, because it's no secret that in later years there's not as many parents who are coming to the school council meetings and taking their taking the engagement opportunities at school council. And so it's not always about the meeting, and this is a great workshop that you could have multiple school councils gather together and get that information and have a great night. And so did you have any more questions, Celeste? Would you like to go ahead?
I do, and it's tied in again to what we're talking about, the engagement. Do you recommend using social media, Facebook, Instagram, etc., as a way to engage your parents and school community? And if so, how do you keep these areas safe, positive, and informative without adding too much work to school council's already busy plate?
And one thing that I know a number of school councils do across the province, they access and use such things as Facebook. It's really important that you look to your school division's policies to ensure that that is something that you can do and work together with your schools to be able to do that. I know in my school division down in Lethbridge, we have a district representative that has to be administrator on the Facebook page, but we figure out ways to make it work. And you can also put limitations on your Facebook pages and different things like that so that conversations don't get carried away. We also ensure that we remind parents that those Facebook pages are not places for personal or an individual story. And those are things that you discuss with the teacher and the principal. So it really needs to be a way that we are looking to engage our parents. In a number of school divisions, it's a way to announce that there's school council meetings coming up, different events that are occurring. And one thing that I encourage lots of school councils to do when they are having access to Facebook or other social medias, often if you put up after your meeting, if you had come to the meeting, this is what we learned at the meeting. So putting up a few Coles Notes version of what happened at the meeting. And Brandy, as she talked about the workshop, it's not about the meeting. Not all parents can come to the meeting, but they still want to be engaged parents. Just because they can't come to the meeting doesn't mean they can't be. So making it accessible so that parents know what was discussed and talked about at the school council meeting and just putting that information there. So using social media is absolutely a great way that parents can engage other parents within their school community. And it's also a great way, there was a question earlier about how do we, find out about parents' perspective on budget. And it's a great way to put out a survey and put some of the results that you hear from parents on your Facebook page, what you're hearing from parents, what you're hearing some of those concerns are. Just again, making sure that it's not about individual students or about an individual teacher or staff member, that just making sure that it is about the general aspect of that topic for your entire school community.
And so several parents that I've spoken with across the province, so perhaps they are not the ones individually running the social media related to their school council meetings, but they have a working relationship with their admin. And so because their admin runs a social page for their school, they will post information about the school council meeting or upcoming events or volunteers needed, anything that the school council wants to put out as messaging, their admin will do that, which means that their admin also works to be in compliance with their school board regulations, and they will also moderate those conversations so that it doesn't fall back on a parent to do so. So if your district doesn't have policies that support an individual parent running something that has the name of like the school council in a Facebook page and you being the owner of that, then you can definitely have conversations with your admin about you would like for your school council to have a social media presence and how can they help you.
Excellent. Thanks, Brandy. You had another question, Celeste, or should we go back to our questions?
No questions yet, but I'm noticing in the chat window lots of great comments. It seems our participants are really enjoying this format and they're really pleased that you're keeping on time with the agenda.
Excellent. And we do still expect that the minister is going to be here at 3 o'clock. So we definitely need to make sure that we are staying on schedule with that. So I have a question for Brandy.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Sure.
So will ASCA take a position on the overdependence of school councils on fundraising to fill funding gaps? And that question came to us from Calgary Board of Education parents.
Okay. So, So ASCA, pardon? Yeah, I'm good. So ASCA, we strongly encourage for school councils to not be the fundraising arm in their school communities and for them to have a separate fundraising society or a foundation, association, FRA, whatever it is that they call it, versus the school council doing the fundraising. So because school councils are legislated to advise their admin on issues related to the school, they are not legislated for fundraising. And so ASCA is currently advocating for sustainable, predictable funding in education. And even though we're advocating for that, we recognize that there are still gaps that parents on fundraising groups in the school fill, because we also know that even if you have two separate organizations, it's often the same group of parents that are giving their time and energy to those organizations in a school community. So those school council members sitting on those societies are still fundraising. And so our position is that we're going to continue to advocate for funding provincially. And we are also going to encourage administrators and our education partners to give messaging out to their trustees and their administrators that school councils are not the place to fill those gaps. School councils are there to advise them on policy and issues relating to their schools. And so that we spread that awareness and advocacy so that our partners are sending that message along too, that it's not parents' responsibility to fill the gaps through increased school fees or through fundraising, because our parents are valuable education partners and they have a lot to say. They need to be giving their energy to that and to shaping their school community versus selling items to fill the gaps from the education budget. I think that's our position.
Excellent. Thanks, Brandy. So I know you're going to ask me another question.
Oh, can I do this just a second
yes.
though? So administrators would be your principals, your assistant principals. In some situations, it would be your superintendent. So it's those individuals at a school who have decision-making capacity. So as I think most of us are aware, school councils, we are there to advise. We do not have the final say in a school. So that goes back to the admin or the principals to make those decisions. So when I'm saying admin, I am saying the people who have the decision-making capacity in your school. So your principals, assistant principals at your district level, your superintendent, and your trustees. Okay,
Excellent.
And I have a question for you, yes. Okay, how are you protecting public education and are you listening to teachers? And this comes from Black Gold School Division, Ecole Champs Valley School.
Excellent. That's a great question, Black Gold. So we represent public, separate, charter, and francophone parents through school councils, and we strongly believe in public education for our students. We believe in a system that's accessible to all, where funding is not performance-based. Performance-based funding leads to inequalities for those divisions with diverse communities, rural indifferences, and divisions that are faced with so many growing challenges. I spoke on CBC Radio back in September about this very thing in regards to the McKinnon report that suggested a performance-based funding model. The teachers were also represented on the radio interview with similar views regarding funding. ASCA advocates for predictable, equitable, and sustainable funding. And we also absolutely view teachers as partners in education. We are working together with the ATA, meeting on a regular basis to discuss commonalities as well as our differences. We are looking for where our policies align and where we can support each other. Any work we do with teachers is guided by the policies our members have entrusted us with, and we support teachers in those areas. Thanks for that question, Brandy.
Thank you. And then so Celeste had handed me some that had just come in right before we started this session. So, this is an excellent question for you, Allison. How do we ensure that kids with complex needs are being supported? And what can we do as a school council to ensure these kids do not fall through the cracks? And we don't have a school council listed for who asked that. So.
Excellent. And that's a great question. And being a parent of 3 children with disabilities, I definitely face this on a regular basis. And one thing with the school councils that I sit on and other school councils that I speak to, I remind parents that just because my child has a disability and it impacts me in a certain way, doesn't mean that it doesn't impact your child as well. So often what we see at school council meetings is that those parents that do have children with disabilities often aren't able to come to our school council meetings. So they're not represented there in body, but it's really important as school councils that we look to see how we can support those families and those students, because it does impact the entire classroom when we have, which is great to have inclusive classrooms, but we need to know that that impact is there for all of our students. So it really is important that as school councils, that even if it's not directly impacting our child, that we're taking the opportunity to have those discussions, talk with those parents, find out what their concerns and issues are, and having those discussions at our school council tables. Remembering that we're not talking about individual students, but looking at the commonalities that we're seeing within the school and having those discussions. So really looking at ways that we can work together. I know in a school division, I've been chatting, and I had went to CASIX the summer, which is all the superintendents from the South. And in talking with Medicine Hat Public, had some discussion as well. I know that Lethbridge Public is looking at ways in which that they can do some work with inclusive education and look at how they're engaging those parents and supporting them. So down in some of the South Zone areas, they are looking at ways that they can gather parents, look at what parents are looking for more information. So, looking at IPPs 101, how do we do IPPs? Parents go into those IPP meetings, Brandy, and they don't know what they're facing. They don't know what they're looking at. The dossier system that produces the ISPs and the IPPs. Those are things that are foreign to many parents. So really looking at how we can support parents with providing them with that education, working together with our trustees and with our school administrators and our division staff so that we can provide that support that those parents need, and really working together regardless if it's your own child or whether it's in your school community that you're supporting those families. Does that answer that question? Okay.
Yeah, that was very well said.
Thanks.
Celeste, do you have any more right now? Okay, so then I'll go back over to here. So we've got about...
Okay.
Yeah.
Celeste, are there some comments on there that you'd like to read out? Because we are nearing the end of our time, and we definitely have come to the end of our questions that had been presented to us ahead of time.
And we there are questions that we did not address, but we are running out of time. And so we want to sort of wrap this up and then head into the minister.
There aren't specific comments in the chat section, just seems to be more about they're pleased with what they're hearing, they're appreciating the engagement.
I can certainly add some comments. So in the questions that were presented to the board, there are some questions that we have not answered. So I should clarify that there are questions that we have not answered. And that's specifically because some of those questions are ones that did go forward to the minister. So I do see a question on playgrounds. So when I met with the minister on November 4th, we talked about playgrounds and the playground funding that the province is looking to add to those new school bills. So I believe that some of these questions, I know that she is going to address playgrounds and what that looks like. So some of the other questions are similar to that. In regards to some of the transportation questions, some of them are quite specific, and we will try reaching out to some of those school boards so that we can help them with those transportation questions. And then some of them have been turned over so that the minister can help us with those answers as well, so that she can answer specifically, especially when we're seeing those transportation fees increasing, in Rocky View School Division, where we're seeing $308, and that bill is going to be coming to parents on January 15th, right after Christmas. So those parents are concerned that they've been given 2 months notice to be able to come up with $308, and they need to ensure that their students are getting to school, but they're struggling to figure out how they're going to pay that bill. So
Yes, that seems like quite a shock right after Christmas. Thank you for your comments. So Celeste, you have another question, please?
I do. How do you communicate that you want choice in education when it comes to faith-based education and support for the separate school system without saying we want choice and giving the UCP fuel to remove caps for charter schools and increase private education?
So from my perspective, I believe that clear is kind. And so I believe that you clearly state what it is that you're asking for. And so one of the ways that you could do that is to clearly put a resolution forward at our AGM, and January 15th is the deadline for that. And then whenever you're filling in the surveys, I do believe when I filled it in, there was a comment section. And so you can put that comment in because again, clear is kind. And so when you want to have your view heard and understood, you need to be as clear as possible in that. And so we would welcome a resolution that explains your viewpoint. And again, the deadline is January 15th. And so looking at our time, we have approximately 3 minutes until the minister is supposed to be joining us. Yes, and so break.
So at this time, we'll take a 3-minute break. We're going to put the screen up. Celeste, if you can put the screen up, please. So we'll take a 3-minute break. If you want to take a moment and you need to use the facilities, we'll come back on in 3 minutes, approximately 3 minutes, as long as the minister is on with us. And we will see you back here shortly. Welcome back. I'm really excited that I'm able to now spend some time with the Minister of Education, Adriana LaGrange. She's joining us on Zoom. She's in Red Deer. She had other commitments, and this was the way that we could ensure that we had some time with her. So thank you, Adriana, for joining us. Adriana has been the Minister of Education since this past spring when she was elected. Many of you will know that Adriana also was trustee in Red Deer Catholic School Division, and she does come with lots of experience in education, and it's great to have her as the minister. So Adriana, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Allison. I appreciate that. So I've got a bit of a speech prepared, and then I know we're going to go into question and answer time periods. So thank you so much. It's a pleasure to join you today on behalf of Premier Kenney and my government and my colleagues. And I really want to thank you for accommodating me. I did have some meetings this morning and that went into early afternoon, and otherwise I would have been up in Edmonton to join you, but I appreciate you accommodating me here in Red Deer. So I want to start by acknowledging the important work you do as school councils who advocate for parents for the parental perspective on education issues. Besides being a trustee for 11 and a half years and provincial president of the Alberta Catholic School Trustees Association and national vice president for a year and a bit, I was provincial president for 3.5 years. I am the parent of 7 children who have all gone through public education here in Alberta, and I have 4 grandchildren up and coming. I'm also trained as a rehabilitative practitioner, and I worked with the developmentally disabled all my life as well. Besides that, my husband and I farm, and we also manage a business as well, a trucking business. So just to give you a little bit of my background perspective and what I bring to the table. Our government recognizes that every child is unique, and parents, not politicians, know what is best for their children. And I know ASCA members personify that spirit through their advocacy of the collective voice of parents. School councils play an important role in supporting and enhancing student learning by providing a way for members of the community to consult with and offer advice to principals and schools. I'm proud to say that in my role as a trustee, I was fortunate enough to receive the Friends of ASCA Award a number of years ago. I think it was about 2 years ago. So please know that we are also very committed to strengthening education by working with our parents, our students, our teachers, our principals, our trustees, and other education stakeholders across Alberta, including all of you. I know everyone participating in this virtual meeting is dedicated to doing what is best for our students' academic and personal development. I truly value what you do each and every day and appreciate the opportunity to spend time with like-minded learners, like-minded leaders in education. Especially those of you like myself who are passionate about ensuring that students are prepared for success in the classroom and beyond the classroom. I'm thankful for this opportunity to provide you with an update on the work that my department is doing to advance Alberta's education system. I know there are a number of topics you would like to hear about and you would like to ask questions about, and I want to start by speaking about our government's recent budget. Government and school councils share an important common goal. We want the best possible education for every student. To support this goal, our government is prioritizing education as an investment by maintaining provincial funding and accounting for enrollment growth. I'll just stop here and say that you can see this by the fact that while we only collect $2.5 billion in educational tax dollars, we are spending $8.223 billion as an investment in education. So to support this goal, our government is prioritizing students and enrollment growth. We maintained funding by reallocating 3 grants into base funding and creating a one-time transition grant. This allowed us to account for the enrollment growth. Compared to other jurisdictions, Alberta still has one of the best funded education systems in Canada. We are spending $37 million per day to ensure our students receive the quality education that Albertans have come to know and expect. Every student who walks through our doors, one of our school doors, receives an education is funded exactly at the same base instruction rate as last year. 98% of my department's operating budget flows to school authorities who deliver education services to students. This gives school boards more flexibility in how they address local priorities. Flexible funding allows boards to better address classroom complexity and composition and to better support teachers. Local boards direct our investment where it makes the most impact in the classroom, but that doesn't mean we can't improve how our education system is funded. We owe it to yourselves as parents and the children to get better outcomes for the money that is being spent on education. That is why we're also undertaking an assurance and funding review of our education system. A sustainable and predictable funding model for education will deliver the best outcomes for our students. In the 2019-2020 school year, this will be a transition year for Alberta's education system as we move from the current K-12 funding model to a new assurance and funding framework model. My department is engaging with school authorities, trustees, and other educational partners so that together we will find opportunities to enhance predictability, transparency, sustainability, and accountability. Our goals for the new funding model are as follows: contain cost growth, predictably allocate funds, increase the share of funding going into the classroom, ensure rural school authorities are treated equitably, and foster collaboration between school authorities to enhance outcomes for Alberta students. Albertans can be confident that our government is making thoughtful, prudent decisions to ensure students continue to receive the education and supports they need. We expect school authorities to manage their resources in ways that reflect local priorities while making the best use of public funds. And while school authorities are responsible for most of my department's operating budget, our government continues to provide funding for school capital projects so that our students can continue to learn in up-to-date and safe spaces. Budget 2019 shows that we are following through with our commitment to build new schools. While continuing to fund existing projects and modernizations in communities across this province, we have committed to 15 new schools, including brand new high schools in Edmonton, Calgary, Leduc, Black Falls, and Langdon. An additional 6 schools are slated for replacement, and 4 more will receive modernizations or additions. Overall, we are providing $397 million in funding over 4 years for 25 projects. As well, $25 million is going to replace modulars. But that's not all. We're also providing $1.4 billion over 4 years to continue work on previously announced school projects across Alberta. I'm happy to say there are more than 60 projects underway in our province, and the future is bright for our students. We are also supporting the school nutrition program and have committed $15.5 million per year for this important initiative. Several school authorities have told us they recognize the importance of the school nutrition program, but they would like to get out of the business of managing it. With this in mind, we are also investing an additional $3 million into a pilot program to explore opportunities to further engage nonprofit organizations in collaborating with school authorities and communities in support of school nutrition programs, with the goal, of course, of maintaining or enhancing the programs for subsequent years. I'm very happy that we've been able to provide more dollars for this initiative, and more details will be coming soon. What I'd really like to do is start, with your help, start a conversation, a community conversation on why so many of our children are coming to school hungry. I believe it deserves a broader conversation. I'd also like to tell you about some of the things my department is doing to create efficiencies. We are, after all, asking school authorities and others in the education system to be responsible, accountable, and prudent with the money of Albertans. Pardon me. So it's also right that we should show leadership in this area. At Alberta Education, we are, 1, maintaining current hiring restraint practices and filling only critical vacant positions. At this point in time, that means the dollars saved by from 46 FTE positions has been reinvested into frontline operating. Reducing staff travel and other supplies and services is another way we're reducing, and we're reviewing all conditional grants and contracts to ensure we only support urgent or unavoidable cases, our top priorities. We encourage school authorities to be equally prudent. We were given a mandate. Albertans overwhelmingly elected our government to bring balance to the provincial budget and to start living within our means. The reality is the cost of education system in Alberta has been growing faster than enrollment growth and inflation. In fact, over the past 15 years, overall costs have gone up by 80%, while enrollment has only grown by 25% and inflation by 33%. The overall operating for our school boards has gone up by 80%. As I said earlier, $2.5 billion is being collected in educational tax dollars, but we are spending, or as I would rather say, investing $8.223 billion. Yet our educational outcomes haven't improved at the same pace. This continued growth in operating spending is unsustainable. All public bodies have to get spending under control. That is true for the government of Alberta, and it is true for every school board in this province. We must do what is best for Alberta's future and the future of our students, the future that our students will inherit. Another topic that I'm sure is of interest to all of you is class sizes. Let me start by saying that the class size grant was not successful in reducing class sizes, and that these dollars can and will be put to better use. To be clear, this funding is not disappearing. We have reallocated it to allow school boards additional flexibility to more effectively meet local priorities. As our recent reports show, that would be the class size audit that we did, Alberta has spent over $3.4 billion since 2004, and it was not able to move the needle in relation to class sizes, particularly for the kindergarten to grade 3 cohort. And another item that that particular grant did not deal with is the growing complexities that are in our classroom. The budget decision to reallocate this funding was made through the lens of what is best for our students and what will be most effective in improving student learning. We owe it to our parents and students to get better outcomes for the money that is being spent on education. Flexible funding allows boards to better address classroom complexity and composition and to better support teachers. Local boards determine their own class sizes and direct our investment where it makes the most sense in the classroom to benefit students. I will be bringing together the education partners to look at this issue from a fresh perspective in the months to come. Curriculum is another key area of interest when it comes to education. And you may have heard that I've appointed an independent advisory panel to provide advice on future curriculum development. The Curriculum Advisory Panel consists of individuals with diverse backgrounds and experiences that will enhance the vision and direction for student learning in Alberta. Panel members are drafting a vision that emphasizes the knowledge, skills, and competencies students should have when they finish high school. The work of this panel will serve as a starting point for public engagement in early 2020. We look forward to working with you to ensure Alberta's future curriculum meets the needs of all our students. So stay tuned for future updates on this work. I just had an update this past week, and I'm very impressed with the work that's been done thus far. Our government implemented an important piece of legislation this fall, and that was the Education Act. And its goal is for all Alberta children to reach their full potential. The Act is about putting kids first and making our schools safe, welcoming places where diversity is celebrated and bullying is not tolerated. It also recognizes parents as a child's first and most important teacher and gives school boards greater flexibility to meet those local needs. The Act strengthens local decision-making and places school boards in the best position to determine the needs and learning opportunities for local students. It brings to life the vision for education shared by thousands of Albertans through widespread consultation. We have an opportunity to build on Alberta's incredible foundation of excellence, established by the talented teachers, principals, school support staff, trustees, students, and parents of our existing education system. Our government plans to introduce another important piece of legislation for the education system in the near future. As you may have guessed, it is the Choice in Education Act, and I intend to bring that forward this spring. The emphasis of the Act is to recognize that parents and legal guardians are the primary educators of their children. Alberta offers a number of education options that allow parents to select the path that they feel will best help their children reach their full potential and ensure their success. This includes public and separate schools, francophone schools, charter schools, independent schools, early childhood education, and home education. I believe that a strong public education system is what makes our province and our country so successful, full stop. My support for school choice does not diminish this view. While some people feel that a province cannot have a strong public school system and school choice, that these two options are mutually exclusive, I do not believe this, and our government does not believe this. We can have both, and Alberta's track record has proven this. In fact, we've had 170 years, to be exact, of school choice. That's why we plan to introduce a Choice in Education Act in the spring. I'd like to thank all members of ASCA for your work in your communities to help encourage a more diverse group of parents to share their views on educational choice. The online survey is still available on alberta.ca and will be available till December 6th. And if you haven't done so already, I recommend you fill it out and encourage others to do so as well. We value the strategic feedback and the thoughtful points of view provided by your education partners, particularly parents and students and educators. I really would like you to encourage you to have your children fill it out as well. I think it's very important to hear all the voices across this province. This input will provide my department with ideas in writing on how we can strengthen educational choice. Together, we will find opportunities to protect, improve, and enhance education choice in Alberta. Moving on from programs and initiatives, I want to talk about something that has always been and will always be a priority for me, and that is to listen. I made it a priority to visit with as many school authorities and schools as possible in your communities, and I will continue to do so in the weeks and months ahead. It's been incredibly valuable to hear from everyone on the issues they are facing, both at the provincial and local levels. And I'm looking forward to hearing from members of ASCA in the future as we work together to prepare our students for success. You have a vital role to play in strengthening Alberta's education system, so I strongly urge you to continue providing us with your valuable insights. And I really want to commend Allison and Brandy and Wendy and the team, everyone, for you've been wonderful to work with, and we've had several opportunities already to meet and chat and discuss the issues, but I look forward to even more so in the months and days, weeks, months, days ahead. So now I really just, again, thank you all for all your great commitment. I know the sacrifices you make as parents to be on school councils and to further work at the provincial level as well. And I really appreciate all the work that you do, and I look forward to answering your questions. So thank you so much for having me here. Okay.
And we as well definitely look forward to the future opportunities to meet together with you, and the number of opportunities that we have had over the past to meet and bring our concerns forward and to have engaging conversations together. So we do have a number of questions. I'm wondering if you're okay if I just take a moment. I forgot to ask our membership if they can please put in the side comments what school with their name as well as the school council that they're representing. We do have a draw at the end today, and I forgot to ask for that to be put in there so that we can give away a registration for our conference. So if you can go ahead and put that in the side chat, that would be great. And we do have a number of questions. Brandy and I will bounce back and forth between the two questions, or between asking those questions. So I'll start with the first one. It's, how can the public hold trustees accountable to trustee code of conduct outlined in the Education Act if only trustees can complain? And this is brought forward from Medicine Hat School Division, Medicine Hat Christian School.
Right. Well, and the whole impetus of having a trustee code of conduct is so that there is greater accountability and transparency for trusteeship. So having the code of conduct in place ensures that trustees are better prepared to step into their roles and be successful, and that school boards are equipped to deal with emerging issues. That being said, I think it's incumbent on everyone involved in education to really review those roles and ensure that not only do trustees have clarity on what their roles are, but school boards and the greater population and the greater education community. Each trustee should be expected to follow the code of conduct and could face sanctions, including disqualification if they do not do so. But again, disqualification is a last resort, and it is really there only when there's egregious breaches of conduct. That being said, I think parents always have the ability to speak out. And I believe that you should be talking to your trustees, and if you have an issue with a particular trustee, you can move that forward through the process that is outlined, and you can have conversations with, you can actually always appeal to the board as a whole to bring your concerns forward. But the trustee code of conduct is there mainly to outline that, that everyone needs to be held accountable and responsible for their actions.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you, Minister. The next question is, why aren't we using the curriculum that had parent and expert consultation instead of one that was last updated 20 years ago? This comes from Edmonton Catholic Separate School Division, Father Michael Miro.
Right. So during the election, we heard from a number of people who had concerns about what's been developed thus far. We wanted to ensure that before we field tested the current curriculum, and what we have developed thus far is the K-4. There's been very little work done on the middle years and virtually nothing on the high school years. So prior to the work being rolled out, we wanted to ensure that we have gotten it right. Because as you say, the curriculum is only revamped every so often. And what I have right now is my panel, my curriculum review panel is looking at developing a new ministerial order on student learning, which is actually the blueprint for how we move forward in the curriculum and development part of it. And they're also looking at what's been developed thus far. My anticipation is that the majority of what's been developed thus far is going to be really good. We're looking at enhancing it or looking for gaps. But once that work is done, we will be moving forward very quickly to move that step even more, to look at how we can move that forward so that the development doesn't stop. We do have a plan on moving development of the curriculum forward. And it's not going to stop, but we will definitely be bringing forward all the things that we're hearing from yourselves as parents and others across the community. There's been a large voice for fiscal accountability or fiscal literacy, I should say, more emphasis on numeracy and literacy. Those are the type of themes that we've been hearing. The panel is looking at it from a very broad, 10,000 foot level to ensure that we don't have any gaps that need to be addressed, and that if there's enhancement that needs to be made, that we're doing it in a timely manner.
Excellent, thanks for that, Adriana. And sticking with curriculum, the question, and I don't have a school council that this is from, but the question is, how many teachers are on the curriculum advisory panel?
That's a great question. We had 350 teachers on the curriculum advisory. Are you talking about the current advisory panel?
I believe that they probably mean the curriculum review panel.
Okay, well, the curriculum review panel has a number of former teachers that moved on in leadership to superintendent positions and beyond that into post-secondary positions. The panel itself has a broad range of experience and expertise crossing many fields of learning. But I do have 350 teachers, current teachers, active teachers on the curriculum design group. And they will continue to do the good work that they've been doing. So they were involved in curriculum design prior to the last to the panel coming, and will continue to be involved in the good work of enhancing the curriculum as we move forward.
Thank you for answering that member question. The next question, and I know part of your answer to this, but I will let you answer the member question. It is coming from Red Deer School Division, Aspen Heights Elementary. The question is, what is your commitment to ASCA funding and advocacy issues?
Well, as you know, we are very committed to it. I'm a strong supporter of the parental voice. As I said earlier, I was very proud to have received the Friends of ASCA award a number of years ago. I really know and value the voice of the parents and the role that ASCA plays. We've asked ASCA, we've continued the grant funding for ASCA. And that funding is tied to specific deliverables, and we want to ensure that that public funding is used to really hear the voice and expand that voice across this province. And I look forward to working with ASCA on how we can do that, how we can increase, because it is so valuable to have the parent's perspective. And I know that sometimes parents are whether it's due to time commitments or just feeling, a little bit shy about getting involved, that sometimes we're not hearing all the voices. And so I'm very committed to hearing all the voices. And I've also started a few ethnic roundtables so that I can hear from a variety of voices and across this province. But I think my commitment is very obvious. We've continued the funding for ASCA because we value the partnership that we have. And so it's very much something that I look forward to expanding and working together to improve even further.
And we definitely do appreciate receiving that grant funding so that we can continue to offer the services that we have offered in the past, so that we will always continue to engage with parents, but this definitely assists us to support school councils by providing the services that they need so that they can use their voice. So
right.
Thank you for
that. And I
that.
think we can start using technology as well. And I'm looking forward, this is new for me to be part of a video conferencing of this magnitude. So I'm excited that we're able to do this and encourage more people from their local communities to be in their local communities. I would also encourage the parents and ASCA members to really utilize their local MLAs. I have been hearing from my local MLAs, they really want to be involved at the local level. And how do they get involved? And I've geared them towards ASCA to partner with their local communities and their local school councils so that they can hear the parents' voice directly. And I would really encourage you all to reach out to your local MLAs.
And that's definitely something that we emphasized in the first part of the session today, is really looking at building those relationships with our MLAs and the importance of that, the importance of inviting them to events at our school so that they can learn our school community, they can build and engage with our parents, and so that they know and understand who we are, and that it's not just that we're going to them with issues, but they really do understand our school community. So it is important to engage with our trustees, but equally important to really engage with our MLAs who are representing their constituents in the legislature. So that's great.
I would echo that, and they're great advocates for you. So I would really echo that as well.
Brandy?
Yes, so thank you for joining us today via Zoom. And as you mentioned in your earlier comments, I assume this is one of the ways that your ministry cuts costs, because instead of traveling here, you were able to Zoom in. So we really appreciate you participating and finding efficiencies within your own ministry. So one of the, which addresses one of the other questions that we had about how is the ministry addressing its own efficiencies. So another question that we have is, how can we reduce class sizes and or provide more resources for kids that struggle with learning in a large classroom setting? This comes from Elk Island School District, Fultonvale Elementary Junior High.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's a great question. As you know, we had done the class size audit, and it had, as I earlier said in my presentation, that the findings were that over the course of 15 years that it really had not moved the needle. There's complexities in the classroom that we're not looking at, haven't been adequately addressed. Well, we're still funding education at a very high level, and it's one of the best funded education systems in Canada. So knowing that local boards are the ones that determine the class sizes and where they direct the funding, it's incumbent on us to, as an education department and local school boards, to have those conversations on where those dollars are going and where those resources are going. And what I've been very clear with my communications out to school boards is that I really emphasize that a teacher in front of students has the greatest impact. And so they're in the best position to know what the priorities of their local needs are. So ultimately school boards and school divisions make those decisions. But we as a department, as an education system, need to have the broader conversation on how do we address the complexities, the growing complexities that are in our classrooms. And, so I'm looking forward, as I said earlier, to bringing together the education partners to have that more fulsome discussion on this particular issue.
Excellent. And just as a follow up, and we're having some sound issues here in order for me to be able to hear everything you're saying. So you may have already answered this in that answer, but a question coming from St. Albert, Paul Kane High School. How do you plan to monitor the impact of cuts to funding on class size?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that there were no cuts to funding on class size. All the dollars that were in that funding envelope, which was significant, was $298 million for this year. Those dollars were reallocated to support enrollment growth. And beyond that, there were two other grants that went to support enrollment growth as well. And that was the school fees grant, and then also the Classroom Improvement Fund grant that actually was due to end as of August 31st. So all those dollars were reallocated back into operating for school boards, and also a one-time transitional grant. So all of those dollars are still in education. Every single student that crosses our doors is funded at the exact same base rate they were funded last year. So every student is funded at the same rate, as is every other grant envelope in terms of inclusion funding, in terms of First Nations, Métis, Inuit funding, in terms of transportation funding. All of those were actually increased to account for enrollment growth. So I would say that we are still funding at a very high level.
Excellent, thanks for that. Our next question is from Calgary Board of Education school councils. Will this government be introducing a voucher system, and will that voucher system increase funding for private and charter schools?
The simple answer is no. We are not going to introduce a voucher system.
Thank you for that.
I don't think there's more to say. It's the answer.
No, fair enough. You were very
That's
very
great.
clear.
It is, that question has been coming up in the chat window as well. So that's why we wanted to make sure that we address that question. So thanks for giving a very clear answer to concerns that we're hearing from parents across the province about the voucher system. Go ahead, Brenda.
So how will you ensure that public education is funded and that taxpayer money is not directed toward privatizing education? This comes from from Edmonton Public School District, Center High Campus, Michael Stravinsky School.
So all education is public education. We're funding it all. Private schools and independent schools actually are funded at 70%. They have not received any more funding. Any funding that increases they've received has only been due to enrollment growth, but they're still funded at 70%, and they receive no capital funding whatsoever. There is no intent to change that. Public education, as I said earlier, all public education is being funded. Given that we only collect $2.5 billion in education tax dollars, but we're spending $8.223 billion. It's a huge investment in all our education funding. So we are just fortunate in Alberta that education has many different looks to it. All our publicly funded education. So we do have the public, the separate, the francophone, the charter, the independent, privates, and the homeschool situation. So, but a strong public education system is what makes our province and our country so successful. And that hasn't changed any, because we have had choice. As I said earlier, we've had choice for 170 years. We'll continue to have choice. But you know, it is publicly funded education, and everyone has a vested interest in it, maintaining in all of us maintaining a strong publicly funded education system.
Okay, thank you for that. We definitely heard a lot of questions coming through in our chat window, as well as questions coming forward to us in the earlier portion today around transportation. So this next question comes from Prairie Rose School Division, Foremost School Council. How will Alberta Education solve the issue of underfunded transportation for rural and remote school divisions?
Oh yes, transportation. That's always a fun one. Transportation is something that it has always been a concern, whether it's rural or otherwise. We spend approximately $294 million in transportation. of which 100 and about half of that goes to rural education fund, transportation funding. We acknowledge that in rural areas there is some challenges, that there's longer routes, greater distances between homes. There's, you know, sometimes enrollment that we have to deal with. There's a number of issues, you know, oftentimes even the roads themselves, the buses take a beating, so you have to replace buses on a higher level, etc. So there are increased costs. So that's why there is actually there is actually additional funding that is provided for rural transportation. That being said, I would argue that every school board in this province would say that transportation funding is underfunded. Whether it is or not is a conversation we're going to have to look at how we can do it differently, because it is one of the biggest issues that I know we hear most of from parents, whether, you know, for a variety of reasons. So it certainly is something that I'm committed to having a conversation on, and beyond that, trying to find some actual tangible solutions to not just rural funding, but transportation in general. Dealing with some of the issues and the complexities of this particular issue. I don't want to say problem, but certainly a challenge that has been something that education has been trying to address for a number of years. And it can never be a one size fits all, because we have very, very unique transportation challenges across this province. Hopefully that.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you for that. The next question, we don't have where the question is coming from, but earlier today we had a polling question discussing the weighting of diploma exams. As well, yesterday I was at a meeting with Alberta Education on diploma exams, and the question has come up numerous times in regards to the weighting of diploma exams. And our membership is wanting to know, knowing that in the UCP platform, you guys were running on the having it increased to 50% of the weighting. So we are wondering from you where your government is at right now in regards to the weighting, and is it going to remain at the current 37-70%? And if it's not, is there going to be further consultation?
Thank you for that. We have an opportunity as a government to review that stand even prior to the election results coming through. And right now we are not looking at changing the weighting at all. We had an opportunity to revisit it, and there is no intent to change the 30-70 weighting at this point in time. So we will be maintaining the status quo.
Excellent, thank you for that. It was looked like the numbers that I can just quickly give to you in that polling was that our membership was looking at that as 30-70% as well. That's definitely not an official response, but it was definitely what we could see from the polling, looking at it just quickly when we had that with our members.
Excellent.
Randy?
Thank you.
Yes. And so as a follow-up to the previous answers that you gave regarding class size, we have a question from Elmwood Elementary School. Assuming your assessment that previous strategies have not addressed class size, has the department undertaken an analysis of why the grants were not successful in moving the dial, and what alternate strategies does the department advise districts to apply to reduce class size?
Right. Well, thank you for that question. I would say that we're still in the process of doing an in-depth analysis on it, and that's why I'm looking also to develop a working group on class size. I've heard, you know, with several of the education partners that we started the conversation, but I really want to formalize that working group. A lot of it revolves around the complexity of the class size and the class composition, that even if and when there are small classes, sometimes it's the complexity within that classroom as well. You know, if you have a number of issues within the classroom, whether there are behavioral problems, whether there are, you know, children that are coded that need additional supports, that often affects the overall way the class works. While the class numbers themselves are one factor, they're not the only factor to be considered. So it is a bigger conversation that we're looking to have, and I am developing a working group on this. I've already spoken to the ATA president about this desire to do this, and he's in agreement as well that this needs a further conversation. And we'd like to circle in all the education partners. So we will be inviting you as well to sit around that table. And I'm looking forward to providing more details soon on how we're going to move forward on that.
Excellent, thank you. Our next question comes from Red Deer School Division, Norman Doe School. What is the justification of needing to take public out of the school division names in the Education Act?
Okay, so the Education Act, as many will recall, was first it came as a result of after regionalization in terms of the names. The Education Act was written around 2012, and then while it was passed, it was never proclaimed. There was a lot of work that was done in subsequent years for the regulations, to look at the regulations. And during that time period, it was found that it was discussed and found that standardizing the division names was needed so that they could have the maximum flexibility on electoral boundaries and representation, that type of thing. So that was work that had been done over those years. It only involves the legal name, not the corporate or branded name. School boards can continue to be branded, or even if they wanted to change the corporate name, that would be a simple matter. It's legally, we require all boards, public boards, to have the same name. Now, out of the 41 public school boards, school divisions, only 8 of them had public in their name. So I believe it was felt that it was easier to have 8 remove the word public to make it uniform than to have the other remaining 33 put it into their name. That being said, I have had conversations with the Alberta School Boards Association and the Public School Boards Association that if all 41 boards wanted public in their name, the legal requirement is all or none. And so, whether the other 3 put public in or the 8 take it out, it's a legal thing, and it's not something that I was requiring, but from a legal standpoint to move forward, that's what was required. So it was a legal name change only affected 8 of the 41 public boards. But as I have said to all the 41, if they all want it in, then it's easy to just have, but it would require all the 33 other ones that do not have it to put it into their names. Did that answer your question, or was there something more? And I can give you an example, like Edmonton Public Schools, prior to September 1st, their name was Edmonton School District number 7. So for them, it just required removing the number 7 from their Edmonton School Division.
Thank you for providing that answer. Looking at the time, I think we'll end with one last question. We did have a number of people in the first part of our meeting today discuss playgrounds. And I'd like to have Brandy ask our last question on playgrounds.
Thank you. Why do transition schools not get the playground grant? Students as young as 9 years old are playing on a parking lot at JPII, Elk Island Catholic School District, Our Lady of the Angels, St. John Paul II.
Okay. First, I'm not familiar with those particular projects, playground projects, but that being said, it was something that I always felt I could never wrap my head around, even as a trustee, is why are we building schools and not having playgrounds, especially in our K-6 and our K-9 schools, and in major modernizations, because I've become very aware of the fact that if you're doing a major modernization and you're actually taking a playground out that's an older playground, then you can no longer have it grandfathered back in. You can no longer put it back in. So now you're having to start from scratch and fundraising all over again. That's why I felt it was very important moving forward. I know the previous government had X number of dollars that for certain school builds that fell within a certain time period, it was very prescriptive that they would get playgrounds. So some were winners and some were losers. Moving forward, I want everybody to be a winner. And I believe that a playground is as important as a gymnasium or any other piece to a school library, any other piece to a new build of a school. So in moving forward, all new playgrounds or new school builds will have playgrounds built in the K-6 and K-9 category, and major modernizations as well. So I just, I can't correct what's happened in the past other than to have a look at specific ones that are brought to my attention, and those ones I'm not aware of what the issues are there. But moving forward, it's certainly something that I want to correct, because as I say, I really believe this is as important to the health and wellness of our children, and as any gymnasium or any other piece to the school. So I really do want to look at that and correct that issue.
Do have one last question that parents are really wanting to hear an answer to, is in regards to SLAs. Are you able to tell us about student learner assessments and what the plan is going forward for those?
Right. As we move forward with the curriculum redesign, we're feeling very strongly that we will be looking to develop assessments alongside the curriculum. So right now, SLAs are voluntarily chosen for this upcoming year. It's felt that perhaps next year we would be looking at a mandatory use of SLAs, but only if as they move forward in enhancing and developing new assessments along with the curriculum. So right now, as I said, we're committed to reforming student assessment for better clarity and outcomes. It's important that student assessment tools clearly identify how students are doing, not only for the teachers, but for the students and for the parents as well. But again, we're going to look at developing appropriate assessments alongside of the new curriculum as it's developed.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Adriana. So we did also hear from our members that some of them submitted questions that we didn't get a chance to get answers to. I understand that you'll be able to answer those questions, providing a written submission to us that we can then post up for our members to be able to see. So just wanted to clarify that. So excellent. Thank you, Adriana.
I'd be happy to do that. Absolutely.
Thank you. We tried to get to a variety of the questions that had been submitted and cover a variety of subjects. So
there's never enough time, so I apologize for that.
Yes, never enough time, but we definitely appreciate you taking the time out of your day today to talk with our members, to answer their questions, to really provide that information that they're seeking. And we would definitely like to invite you to do this again with us. To be able to hear from our members is excellent, and to be able to engage with them at this level is fabulous, and for them to be able to sit in their home community and to join us and to be able to hear what's important to them is so great. So thank you so much, Adriana, for joining us, and we appreciate your time today.
Thank you for all the great work you're doing, and in case I don't see some of you I will see over the course of the next few weeks, but if I don't see you, have a Merry Christmas, and thank you so much for all the tremendous work you do. Keep up the great work.
Excellent. Thank you, Adriana.
Take
and I'd
care.
like to now invite Shelley to come up and join us.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to be with us today. We've gone through all of your submissions for the school councils in attendance today, and the lucky winner of a paid admittance to our 2020 conference is Mackenzie Town School Council, represented today by Shauna McKean in Calgary. We look forward to meeting you in April of 2020. We would also like to know what you thought about today's engagement opportunity with one final poll. Please start the final poll.
And we'll give you a couple of minutes to answer that.
Excellent. So thank you for answering that poll, and we will take a look at those results and look at the feedback for future events that we're going to host with you to be able to engage. A couple of closing things that I wanted to share is ways that we want to still be able to hear from you. So as you heard us speak throughout the time today, we talked about the School Council Engagement Task Force. That's an opportunity for you guys to be able to engage with us on a regular basis throughout the year. If you have not done so yet, please visit our website and you can sign up for School Council Engagement Task Force with one member from your school council. I'd also like to talk about our resolution process. That was referred to a number of times as well. So our resolution process is open. It must be a resolution that comes from your school council. It cannot be an individual parent that brings that forward. So as a school council, have discussion, figure out what's important to you, put that resolution forward. If you need assistance from the board or from the office, please make sure that you call in throughout December so that your question or your resolution is ready to go by January 15th, which is the deadline. I'd also like to talk about the importance of attending our conference and AGM. It is in April, but the dates were shared with you earlier. And we'd love to hear and see from you, many of you from across the province. We also know that many of you can't attend, and that's why we have events such as this. And we also wanted to make sure that we hear from you through your proxy vote. So proxy votes, in our last set of bylaws last year, we increased the number of proxy votes that our members can carry. Used to be 5 votes in total that our members can carry, and now we've increased that to 10 votes that a member can carry. So that way a member can carry up to 9 other school councils other than their primary school council that they're coming for. It's really important that we hear from you, regardless if you can attend our conference and AGM. And if you are a school council that's unable to attend, you can look to your division to find another school council that might be attending and can carry your proxy vote. Or if you are unable to find someone within your school division, you can call the office. We do have a list of some people that are attending that are willing to carry an additional votes. And it's important that you share with that person what your voice is and what you want to have them carry forward. Over the last 2 years, we have more than doubled our representation on the AGM floor, and we want to see that increase again this year. And we really are pushing for those proxy votes because we do truly want to hear from all of our parents across the province. We've worked closely with ASBA, with Alberta School Boards Association and trustees, to have them encourage school councils to be sending in those proxy votes, even if they're unable to attend. Next, I'd like to move on to our nomination process. So as you saw today, at the beginning, I introduced our board, and the board does do quite a bit of work. They're up here in Edmonton approximately 5 weekends throughout the year, as well as other opportunities that we have where we're invited to external partner opportunities to share the Ask a Voice. And there are times that you're away from your family, as well as the commitment does involve one evening a month that we have virtual Zoom meetings similar to this. But it is a great honor to be able to sit and represent the parent voice, to be carrying that voice forward, and it's a great opportunity for you to bring the provincial parent voice forward. If you're considering running for our board, take a look at the documents that are on our website and consider that getting your nomination packages in. And then I'd also like to end in saying that I think that this was a great opportunity today. We heard from our members. We had some great polling results. Seeing some of the comments in the chat, looks like this was an event that people really enjoyed being able to engage. We definitely, when we started the process, we thought it would be a little bit more where we would be able to have you live on asking a question. But I do feel that we covered quite a few of the questions that had been sent in previously when you registered, as well as the questions and the comments that came up live today. So we do hope that you feel that this was an opportunity to share your voice. And we definitely will be looking at and exploring us doing this again and having this member engagement opportunity so that we can hear from you. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you for participating, taking time out of your Saturday to be here with us today. Huge thank you to our board as well as the ASCA staff for making sure that this event could happen today. And our only issues were the technology challenges right at the beginning. So I think we rolled through it pretty good and figured out ways that we could accomplish this task, to be able to hear from you, our members. Your voice is very important. We want to continue to hear from you. And again, my email address is president@albertaschoolcouncils.ca. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to send those to me, as well as those that information that you're receiving from your school boards in regards to budget and what changes are going to be happening. Please forward those to me as well so that we can advocate and speak on your behalf. So I'd like to turn it over just for the last few comments to Brandy. Thank you.
I do believe that you covered most of my comments and thanking the board and the staff, but a special thank you to Allison, because this was her brainchild just a few months ago. And she started with the question of, what if we did a live engagement opportunity? And we all bought into it, the crazy people that we are. And apparently you did too. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. And good luck with all of your what ifs in your community, because it's just that question that starts and can make a huge difference. So again, thank you for coming. And I hope to see many of you at our conference. Thank you.